So mindfulness in its simplest form is simply a practice of paying attention. And through paying attention, we can actually begin to bear witness to the present moment and see what's actually truly in front of us. It's a practice of observing thoughts, observing narratives, without judging, without grabbing hold of them, but just allowing thoughts, sensations to come and go just as easily. So through an intentional mindful practice, we're able to become a little bit more present in our daily lives, to be able to see what's truly happening in front of us. And then in many ways, to be able to interact with the world from a calmer, more stable place. There are so many routes you could go down. It doesn't need to be that you need to sit and practice for 60 minutes every day with incense burning and in a really quiet room. You could use an app. There's loads of apps out there. Some are free, some are paid for. There's lots of free stuff available on the internet, of course, as well. Or if you prefer something in person, you could head down to your local yoga studio. Maybe even there was a meditation center or a Buddhist center nearby you could go down to. But equally, there are many techniques that you could just do yourself. You don't need to have a guided meditation. It could simply be you just observing your breath for 5 minutes, and that could be your mindful practice. So firstly, I would say try to let go of all expectations. Okay, some people really expect to be able to just sit perfectly still for 10 minutes without any thoughts coming inside their head and end their practice feeling pure, feeling alive, feeling awake and in love with the world. Realistically, that's probably not going to happen. Your mind will wander and it will keep wandering. But if your mind wanders 60 times in a 5-minute practice, fine, as long as you bring it back 60 times. So that's my biggest tip, I think. Lower expectations of what the practice might do for you in the short term. Lower expectations of how easy you think the practice might be, because your mind won't be used to being still. And actually don't put too much pressure on yourself by making yourself sit for 60 minutes or half an hour initially. That's a little bit too much. Be very gradual, give yourself time. In saying that, if you're a beginner and you meditate for just 5 minutes each day for a month, I really do believe you will feel a pretty profound impact from those 5 minutes of practice. So there's multiple pathways of yoga, and one pathway really is meditation. So meditation is, in a sense, a form of yoga. When most people think of yoga though, people tend to think of asana, which is the movement. And that can really be a mindful practice in itself, in that when you're moving your body, what we're not doing in yoga is making shapes. We're not performing to anyone, but we're having a practice of self-inquiry, using the body as a vehicle for that self-inquiry. And by spending 60 minutes really observing the sensations of what's happening in your body and with your breath in that moment, you become more centered in that present moment, which is what we're trying to do, is bear witness to the present moment. Although saying that, of course, when you're learning about yoga or beginning an asana practice, there are still lots of distractions. You're out of breath, things are hurting. So I would say, yes, you can be mindful while practicing asana, but having a dedicated, separate mindful practice is probably worthwhile. There are so many things you could do, but one that I love that is so simple is a focus on the breath, a mindfulness of breathing. But you sit nice and tall, nice and alert. You can use a chair, you can use a wall. And as you sit tall, you just start to watch air coming in and out of the body and what it feels like to breathe. You observe the inhale, you observe the exhale, you observe the pauses in between. And without trying to control your breath, you simply watch that flow. Without trying to manipulate, you simply observe. And of course, your mind will wander at some point. But when you realise it's drifted and you're suddenly thinking about the logistics of owning a cat or where you'd like to go on holiday next, pause, acknowledge that without judgment, and come back to the beginning of the next inhale. And actually that's a really good place to come back to always in life, I think, the beginning of the next inhale. When things get too much, when you feel overwhelmed, just pause, watch the next inhale, and that can be a really nice way to center yourself.